Idaho for Wildlife for inviting me here to speak today. And I'd certainly like to thank you all for coming out on a very wonderful and beautiful July day. We all ought to be out doing something else besides talking about wolves. My talk is on wolf recovery and independent analysis. I'm not employed by either side, haven't received any money from either side, and I follow this mainly as an academic interest. Just so that you know, I'm a wildlife ecologist, but I'm not politically correct for a wildlife ecologist, as you find out. So I'm actually in the political science department at Utah State University, because they've given me political asylum. But all I do is ecological research that's funded by the legislature and various other grants that I get. And I just basically tell it the way I see it, okay? This kind of stuff. See if we can get this. Oops. Okay, you gotta do something, Steve, because I'm in trouble already. Oh, there you go. You need to get this border off, it's whatever you need to do. Okay. However you do it, you just get the PowerPoint without all that stuff. Okay, there you go. You'll see, I was hoping I would that I would die before I had to learn all this digital CRAP stuff. Okay, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. And so basically, I'm used to using slides. So this is basically a glorified slideshow. I hate to say this about Steve, but he'll learn from his mistakes here. A lot of his slides, even if you can read them, were too busy. So you won't find that I have any busy slides, except maybe one, which I don't expect you to read, but just to show you that I have data to back all this up. When I started my PhD research at Utah State University, and my PhD was in elk and vegetation in Yellowstone Park, that's when I started tracking the grizzly bear issue and the wolf issue from an academic standpoint because of my interest in the research there. When I started, I had 3 Apple boxes full of files. I have 65 file cabinets full of scientific reports. And wolves are just a small part of what I do. One of the main things I do and study is long-term ecosystem states and processes, and especially what was here before the Europeans. And of course, winds up being very politically incorrect because I study what Native Americans really did to the environment, not what people think they did to the environment. So then again, wolves is just a small part of what I do. Now, wolf recovery, unfortunately, has been a scientific fraud from the very beginning. And luckily, it's getting a little dark now, but I have to explain some of these graphs so you see. This is the Montana-Idaho border. This is Idaho here. This is Montana here on it. This is from the 1987 wolf recovery plan. They had a right recovery plan before they did the federal EIS. So this is what started the whole thing off back in 1987. This was put together by a bunch of supposed wolf biologists who either didn't know anything about wolves or they were totally corrupt. Okay? And what you have here, first of all, notice the small recovery area. This is Glacier Park. This is one small recovery area. This is Central Idaho. This is one small recovery area. And this is a small recovery area around Yellowstone. But where the scientific fraud, aside from this, where it occurred it's hard to see. And this is a figure right out of the government report. Okay? I'm not making this up. I didn't do anything to this. I didn't tweak it, I didn't do anything. I just made a copy of it and did it on blue and white, the secretaries for me. These dotted lines are what are called potential dispersion corridors. Well, what the hell is this? This is the continental divide, okay? When do wolves disperse? Wolves disperse early in the spring, February and March. What does the world look like in February and March? It's under 8-10 feet of snow. Where do we know wolves disperse? Where did I know wolves dispersed? And anybody who knew anything then knew where wolves dispersed. Well, they disperse right down the open valley. Well, what's in the open valley? Well, it's private land and a livestock. So what they tried to do through the whole EIS process and everything else is try to minimize what the information they're selling to the public as far as the impacts these wolves are going to have. Okay. And so this is one of the things here where you can totally prove using their own data they were either incompetent or they were corrupt.
Ed Bangs was corrupt.
I'm not going to mention that. Except I actually will here. So this is the first thing I wrote. I'm lucky this all took so long because it's getting a little darker, and you can see some of these things. This here is I wrote my first thing on wolves, and it was published in Peterson's Hunting, and it's called Wolves in the West, and the government does not want you to know about wolf recovery. And the minute this hit the press and was published, Ed Bangs tried to have me removed from the university. Okay. He called the president of the university on it and said they should fire me because basically I was a horseshit scientist and didn't know what I was talking about. My whole analysis was totally wrong. And the other thing he said to my department chairman was because of what I wrote here, I was endangering the lives of his agents in the field because, quote, those neo-Nazis in Montana, based on what I'd written, were going to start shooting his people in the field. Okay, you go back and read what I wrote, what I was trying to warn people and hunters is this is coming, you know, they're doing this EIS process, this is what they're telling you, you know, I don't think they're giving you the best available science, you need to get involved in the process. Okay? You need to read the EIS and figure all this out. I never told anybody to get their gun or kill wolves. You know, I follow this just as a scientist. I'm not going to tell you how to manage wolves. That's a different question. I'm going to talk about what was or what is. Okay? If you can tell me what your desired future condition is, you know, being a scientist, I can tell you how you might get from point A to point B if you want to go to point B. If you want to go to point C, I can give you my best recommendation on how to get to point C. But I don't live here in Idaho. I'm not going to tell you how to manage wolves in Idaho. I think our state legislature in Utah, I think they passed some kind of resolution last year which said the state's policy on wolves is no wolves are over our dead collective body. Something about that effect.
Yeah. Did they call you a neo-Nazi?
Pardon?
Were you called a neo-Nazi?
No. Ed Bangs basically said the people in Montana who were neo-Nazis, based on what I was written, was going to encourage them to shoot his people in the field. He told that to my department chairman. My department chairman couldn't believe it. But you have to understand, in Utah, the reason I'm in the political science department is because my department chairman at that time does natural resource policy. He since moved to economics, where he still does natural resource policy. But I'm just interested in doing the science because that's what I was trained to do, and that's where my expertise is, and that's what I like to do. And then he would like to take the science, the data, and once I educated him, and then go do the policy and the politics kind of that stuff. So he couldn't believe that a federal person was actually saying that. But in Utah, when the federal government tries to fire you, it actually enhances your career. And that's one of the reasons the legislature has been funding me, 4 years. Plus another time, the President of the United States intervened once our congressman set up a debate between me and the superintendent of Yellowstone Park, and I'm in Yellowstone. I'm in the take no prisoners mode. It's just scientific fraud, and I can prove it. Okay. Well, the President of the United States intervened, and I got canceled. Okay. So in Utah, the politicians understand when one side won't let the other side speak. So that was very good for my career too. This was in 19.